Hey folks, welcome back to the Kills That Got Me Into Horror. This is the third in a series where I'm taking a little nostalgic trip back to those death scenes that I saw as a young horror viewer that helped really shape my love of horror movies. Today's one's actually the first one that I saw in early adulthood. But after seeing this movie, it quickly became one of my favorite horror films of all time. Let's get into the holiday spirit on the Kills That Got Me Into Horror.
Ow!
So as of the recording of this video, this holiday season marks the 50th anniversary for this little holiday gem, often cited as the very first modern slasher film. It is the classy, sometimes even elegant, holiday horror tale Black Christmas. This one I absolutely recommend. There are going to be some slight spoilers ahead, but more importantly, this is just a phenomenal film. Do yourself a favor, go check it out. It's perfect for the holiday season, or any time of year, really. So way back before elevated horror was a term, back in 1974, Black Christmas was doing this sort of home invasion, sorority sisters, a killer picking off people one by one in a house, and it delivered them with a great deal of style and amazing camera work and incredible lighting, and it just really was one of the first scenes that I saw that made me realize that horror could truly be art, be something a little bit more than just a visceral experience. And there are a number of really fun, artistically executed deaths in this movie, but there is one that is just my absolute favorite and has been one of my favorite death scenes ever since I saw it. It is the original Black Christmas's death sequence of the rowdy sorority sister Barb.
Oh, come on, this is a sorority house, not a convent. Would you guys shut up in there? I can't hear a thing.
That thing's a little bugger schnockered, son of a.
So the scene kind of perfectly encapsulates what the movie on the whole does really well, which is combines these traditional Christmas elements that are usually kind of wholesome and sweet, and it kind of puts it with these horror elements and these gruesome, bloody sequences, and it makes both of them like infinitely creepier than either elements would be by themselves. So the scene opens at a sorority house during holiday break, and we as the audience know that there is someone who has snuck into the attic of this sorority house and is kind of living up there while the girls are all downstairs celebrating Christmas and saying their goodbyes for the holiday. And the killer's been making some obscene phone calls from a different phone line in the house.
You fucking creep.
With many of the girls now out of the house and some even dead, our main character Jess is looking after Barb, her sorority sister, who is both asthmatic and drunk.
No, I've had a couple.
We see the killer sneak down from the attic and into Barb's room, and he watches Barb sleep, which causes her to wake up, have an asthma attack, and think she's having a nightmare.
I dreamed a stranger was coming in my room.
So after Jess makes sure that Barb is okay and falling back to sleep, she finds that there are some children Christmas caroling outside. While Jess listens to the children sing, just upstairs, the killer is sneaking back into Barb's room, and the shots of the children slowly, as the sequence plays out, get closer and closer. He starts with these wide shots of all the kids, and then he switches to kind of two shots. As the killer is actually killing Barb, when he cuts back to the children, he's in extreme close-up on their faces, and it's just this slow progression, just kind of a visual arc that he gave the caroling side of things while the gruesomeness of the murder was playing out. And the shots in Barb's room are so filled with these great negative spaces and this large amounts of black that fill the scene. And there's not a lot of gore. There is so much subtleness and restraint that's kind of used in this scene. Ah, love it. Love it. All right, so reasons that I loved it so much. Again, just continuing this theme that has happened throughout all of these kills that got me into horror. this sort of anti-horror setting. In the first two ones we talked about, Jaws and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it was these very sunny places, these very comforting daytime places. This is not that. This has a lot of darkness in it, but it's home, it's fireplaces, it's Christmas lighting, it's your own bed, it's all of these things that should be safe and warm, and it turns them into sort of very dangerous, dark, threatening places. And I think what I love about this particular scene, and certainly did as a teenager, was that it kind of takes cozy suburbia and all of these beautiful Christmas lights, and it makes them very eerie and very haunting, and it just casts this whole ghostly pall over all of Christmas. The music kind of does the same thing, and the children come up and sing, and it just creates this whole atmosphere that's completely juxtaposed with what's going on just upstairs. And the sort of the timing and the construction of the music crescendoing just as Barb is meeting her end. It's an excellent and unexpected use of music. Another thing that really creeped me out that has also happened in some of these other ones that we talked about, proximity to others and safety and the kind of false sense of security that that's supposed to give you. And being in your own house with like a whole group of people just downstairs, there's something so unnerving about just the idea that you're at home in your own bed and there's nowhere that should be safer. And the singing of the children just completely drowns out the sound of the murder just upstairs. So this is where we get into some of the slightly spoilery stuff, I suppose. The killer, who is kind of only known as Billy, is never really ever revealed or explained or caught. For me, that was very creepy, that the movie didn't feel any need to answer any questions. It just left you puzzled and a little nervous and without any sense of resolution, really. And even though I've seen it many, many times, the ending almost always gives me goosebumps. The strongest aspect of this scene by far is I just think the technical execution is so well done, beautifully shot. And again, those camera movements are just amazing. When we're kind of focused on the children and the caroling and downstairs, there's very slow movements and smooth pushes, whereas upstairs we just have very static shots capturing snapshots of what's going on during that violent scene. And there's a good juxtaposition in that. The lighting is just amazing. It sort of takes this twinkly, delicate, very Christmassy aesthetic, and it makes it really kind of ghostly and threatening. And there are always kind of these dark spaces around the edges and a lot of dark woods in the house, and it just creates these murky places where you're just not sure if something's standing there or something's going to jump out, which is played to great effect during one of the most famous shots towards the end of the movie. The original Black Christmas took what is now a very much cliched story of just a group of sorority sisters getting picked off one by one with various sharp objects. It is through sheer artistry that this one becomes a truly unnerving experience. That it really changed the way I thought about horror in some ways. It made me realize that there could in fact be technical prowess and cinematic merit and art in horror film. I really love this one. This scene was definitely subtler and more polished than like the griminess of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the kind of overblown studio production of Jaws: The Revenge. This scene certainly didn't openly terrify me as much as some of the other ones. Again, I saw it when I was a little bit older, so I probably wasn't so easily traumatized, but this one was a little bit more about kind of an aesthetic that always stuck in my head, less because of the fear that it instilled, and more for the appreciation behind horror filmmaking. I feel like it's kind of only been in the last couple decades that this movie has gotten its dues. It got several awful remakes. Please, if you're going to watch this one, watch the original. And people seem to be finally giving it its credit as probably the first modern slasher film, using those POV shots and doing holiday-based horror. This was all like 4 years before Halloween. It even nailed
The caller is in the house. The calls are coming from the house.
5 years before When a Stranger Calls made that famous.
Trace the call. It's coming from inside the house.
But I would definitely say it's more than just a precursor to slashers in general. I think this one was a precursor to these sort of elevated horror films, things like Midsummer and Hereditary and The Lighthouse. I think some of it can trace its roots back to the subtle, simple, restrained beauty of Black Christmas. Alright, so I think that should do it for this one. In the meantime, as always, like, subscribe, keep sending those obscure horror recommendations, and I will see you all on the next Sunken Media.
Hello? 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 Pardon? Who? Hello? 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 Oh, hell, not again.